Good morning. My name is Jim Perotti. I'm here with Paul Julian, and we are interviewing Robert Brewster this morning. He was a Navy veteran. He was a radar man, and he is going to give us his military story. Thanks, Bob. Go ahead and take it away.
Oh, I was born in Rhode Island, and I had two brothers. And my oldest brother was a Navy man, and he was in Mass General for 4 years. My other brother went aboard the USS Columbus. Well, I was no different than any other kid in high school. Graduated from high school, didn't know what I wanted to do. I put in some time in a department store and odd jobs like that, and I said, no, no, no. I saw my brother enjoying the Navy so much, I said, well, put up my hand and said, I'll join the Navy. So went through boot camp down at Newport, Rhode Island, Company 266. And that was the last company through Newport. They closed it down and they moved the training station to Great Lakes. And then Bainbridge was set aside for the ladies when it had a few ladies in the Navy back then too. So after boot camp, they shipped me down to Norfolk, and my brother and I both put in a chit to get on the same ship. He was on the Columbus, and he was a navigator. And the Navy, even though the Sullivan brothers were still fresh in their mind, they allowed both of us to go on the same ship.
So Bob, he was a quartermaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he, when I got down to Norfolk, they put me on the Geiger, who was a transport ship that transported families and so on over to Europe. And there were about 6 of us going to the Columbus. So they took us into Naples, Italy, and from Naples they put us on the USS Sabine. It was a tanker, and it was going to Cannes, France. So they dropped us in Cannes and they put us on a bus. This was Christmas Eve, and we were bused down to Gulf One, where the Columbus was anchored off, and we got down there just after dark on Christmas Eve. We came around the mountain, and the
Go ahead, sir.
the Columbus was down there, and you have never seen anything as pretty as a heavy cruiser all decked out for Christmas and all in Christmas lights. And it was gorgeous because I knew that was going to be my next home for 4 years. So I finally got aboard. I went up the gangway, and the officer's deck put me in one of the deck divisions. All seamen that first come aboard a ship like that are put into the deck division, and to sort of get them used to the Navy life. And their job was to keep the ship clean, chip and paint it when it got rusty. And they were all in the gunnery sections.
Yeah.
They manned the guns. They put me in a 5-inch turret, and I was the guy in a 5-inch turret that caught those hot shells when they come out of the gun and threw them out on the deck. And that I didn't really like that job.
Did you have asbestos gloves or
Yes,
special
big
gear?
asbestos gloves all the way to the elbows.
Okay, and how about, did you have an apron or
No,
face
no,
covering?
no.
Nothing.
But,
Just the arms and hands.
but yes, and the other thing that we did to keep the ship clean, we had wooden decks, and so we holy stone the deck, and holy stoning is you take like a fire brick, and you hollow out the center of the fire brick. Then you have a broom handle, and you insert the broom handle in it. Then you go back and forth on the boards. The bosun mate wets them down and soaps them down, and when you get done, they're just as white you could eat off them. There's a picture in there, and they. It didn't take me long to figure out that that's not where I wanted to be. So my brother, as I say, was a quartermaster and a navigator, and the radar navigation people were in the same compartment as them. So he says, we got an opening. I said, count me in.
Operations. They were in operations. Yeah.
Please. So that's how I become a radar man. And then I had a tremendous division officer. He says, Bob, he says, you work hard, study hard, and I'll put you up for third class, second class, so on, right along. So in 4 years, I made first class. And yeah, in just 4 years.
My
And,
gosh.
It paid off in a lot of respects. It helped my Navy life. I became shore patrol all over the world and so on. But
Bob, just to interrupt for a moment,
yeah,
as a promotion to first class, what does that equal to in the rest of the military ranks with regards to enlisted?
I don't know.
It's E6.
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 Yeah.
Okay, so that would be equivalent to a staff sergeant in the Army or the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As I say, it only took me 4 years because they helped me along.
Those ranks are very hard to achieve in a 4-year period.
Absolutely.
Without war.
One in 1,000.
Right, absolutely. Testament to your.
And then when, after I had my 4 years in the Navy, and I was going to be discharged, my division officer had to write a letter explaining why that he let me out. But after I got out, the ship was 6th Fleet all the time that I was in it. And I made that first cruise that was only a partial cruise. We were only over there a short time and came back to the States. And when we came back to the States, I came back from Boston down to Rhode Island, and I used to hitchhike down, and all kinds of people picked me up.
Not a problem.
So one time I was hitchhiking down, and this guy picked me up. He had a bunch of briefcases in the back of his car and so on. He looked like a lawyer. And I said, he says, I'm going your way. So as we went down, he talked, what are you on? I said, I'm on the Columbus. He says, oh. He says, is there anything new in the Navy? And I says, yeah, the new DLs, the destroyer leaders, came in right at that time. And he says, how's the ship? Is your ship, you think your ship is ready for war? And I said, well, the morale's kind of bad. He says, why is the morale bad? I said, well, we had a division officer executive officer that the crew didn't like very much. So just before I got out of the car, he says, I'm gunnery officer on the Mitchell tied up next to you in Boston. And that's the last I saw of him. And it was also the last I saw of my executive officer, because 2 weeks later, he was gone. They transferred him to Malta. So the morale on the ship went up. But we've had all kinds of good captains aboard ship. We had Fearless Freddie. Have you heard of Fearless Freddie?
No.
Oh, he was a sub-captain. And he went into Tokyo Bay and took a lot of Japanese shipping. That's how he got his fame. And they made him. They brought him aboard our ship as a captain, and he had to serve, I think, 12 months as a captain of a big ship and to go up to admiral. So that's how he got up to admiral. And the other good one we had Admiral Waters. He was a 31 knot man. He had to do everything fast. So when I was in the radar gang, it was my job to maneuver the ship and recommend courses, speed changes, and so on. So we operated in several formations. When we were going through the Straits of Gibraltar, we went through in a tear formation, single file. And then after you get through, then you circle back up into a circular cruising formation. So this admiral kept yelling in my ear. He says, "Get on station," because we were slow getting into our position.
You were sailing in formation.
Yeah. So there were a lot of incidents.
In Gibraltar?
Yeah, Gibraltar right here.
Right there.
Going through.
Yes, sir.
And isn't that the passageway between Europe and Africa, right into the Mediterranean?
Yeah, right here.
Right.
And after we got through, then we went back into the other formation. And that formation, we operated a lot with NATO. We had NATO ships with us all the time. And we ran ASW, anti-submarine runs and so on. And the funny one was this sub-captain, he was a comic. And we made a ASW run. And the sub-captains didn't want the world to know where their ship was. So they didn't use their call signs, and they didn't. So on these runs, we became like brother, sister, different names like that. So we made a run, and we were brother, and they were sister. So we made a run and came back for the second run, and he got on the net. He says, "I'm ready for the second run, but this time I brother, you sister." So my first cruise over there, as I say, was very short because it was half over because my brother was up in the northern part and came back down.
North Atlantic.
And I didn't pick up the ship, as I say, until it was down in France.
Now, when you were in the Mediterranean and you went to these different ports, were they still suffering the effects from World War II?
Oh, absolutely. That's the reason we were there. We were there for two big reasons. One is to show the strength of the United States and show that the United States is there and to protect everybody. And each port we went into, we added a lot of money to the port. We bought this and bought that, and they all liked to see us coming.
Yeah.
And the friendships that we had. Yeah. One funny one was I was on shore patrol in Naples, Italy, and this 16-year-old Italian boy came up, and he says, "Can I walk along with you? I want to practice my English." I said, "Yep." So he asked me a couple questions. I said, "Yep, yeah," and he looked right at me and he says, "You mean yes, don't you?" Here's an Italian boy correcting my English. And the other experience we had in Italy was I went on I went on the beach all the time with
Liberty,
Carl
yeah.
Seco. He didn't drink, I didn't drink.
Carl-
And he was my beach buddy. So we climbed up the hill up to a quarry, and we were up in the quarry, and it was getting late in the day. So this guy was coming up out of the quarry in a big truck. He was loaded down with stone, and he says, "You want to ride down to the city?" So we said, "Yeah." So we climbed in, and we're coming down the hill, and we kept going faster and faster and faster. And he hits the brake pedal, bang, bang, bang on the floor. And I said, "Uh-oh." But he knew that down at the bottom there was an upgrade, so he didn't have to
Slow
worry
down.
about the brakes. But he kind of got a kick out of us because he really put the fear in us going down the hill that night.
Yeah.
So,
Good Liberty.
yeah. So in every port there was something different. The most interesting port that we visited was in Turkey, Izmir, Turkey.
Izbia.
And people don't know where Izmir is.
Would that be it?
Would
that be
It's way over here. And Izmir was on the trade route over there, and it bartered with people coming in and out. And it was destroyed one time, and they rebuilt it, and then it was destroyed again. Well, it was in ruins while we were there.
Wow.
But I got to go into the library where they had books, not shelves, they just had where they put the scrolls, stacked them up. And you come out of the library, and here's a baptism font. And you stand on the edge of the baptism font looking in, and they told us that's where Mary Magdalene was baptized. And boy, that's really something to be able to be there, and you feel it. And then,
Was that where that cross was at? Excuse me, sir. Was that where that cross was at?
Yeah.
That you showed me in your book, the cross.
Yeah. Okay. And then we went out on the road, and I walked down the road in the ruts from Alexander the Great's chariot, and got down the bottom and went into an amphitheater, and it's a big, massive amphitheater, and they told us that that's where John the Evangelist preached, and it's a thrill to stand in the middle of the amphitheater stage looking up, and you can just picture all those people, and you're standing right in the same spot that John the Evangelist stood. And his tomb was up on the hill. We went up and visited that. Then off in the distance, they pointed out a prison where John the Baptist was in prison. So Izmir was a real fantastic place to go. And coming
Did the people in that area, did they like Americans? Were they receptive to you? Or were they just cold or quiet, or how'd they react?
I don't think I had one time had anybody that was dissatisfied with the Americans. In fact, we went into Barcelona, Spain, and we were the first ship into Barcelona after the war. And they were so glad to see us. I mean, and we opened the ship up and we brought them all aboard.
Were there any countries that had sided with Germany that you went to where the people were hostile or did not like Americans?
No, I didn't go up to Paris, or I didn't go up to Germany.
I meant like in Africa or in the Mediterranean, any of those Mediterranean countries such as Iraq.
Algiers was an international country. It was the Portuguese had it for a while, and the French had it for a while, and Italians had it for a while. When I was there, they had the French Foreign Legion, and I was on shore patrol, so in the Casbah, and the French Foreign Legion took us through, and they were very friendly. I mean, there was no hostility at all. But
Were the Foreign Legion, did they provide the security at that
oh
time?
yes, that's what it was. As the countries rotated, they used their own security, and I got teamed up with the Voice of America, and the guy took me all over, and so I got to see a lot.
Fabulous.
And that was we got back to Algiers twice, and once it was I got through the Casbah. The first time through, I didn't go through the Casbah because it's kind of a dangerous place at night.
Oh yeah.
When we got into Greece, we anchored in Falaran Bay. We couldn't go into port with a big ship, so you could see the Parthenon up on the hill, and I did some shore patrol there too. I had a thing going. I lived in Rhode Island. The ship was in Boston quite a bit, so I liked my liberty from Boston in. So I traded my liberty for liberty overseas. So if you wanted to go up to Paris, I gave you my liberty to go to Paris. So that worked out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Parthenon, another thing, a thrill in the Parthenon was to stand up on there and look down on Mars Hill. And Mars Hill is where Socrates was most of the time. And that, when I finally got to college, I studied Socrates just to find out what he was and what he did and so on.
The father of philosophy.
Yeah, the philosophers were all there.
Mm-hmm. Would if I could just, Bob, did what were the conditions? You said this is right after the, not long after the war ended.
Yes.
Were they still rebuilding when you were there?
No, I didn't see much rebuilding. I know it was going on, but we never did see the rebuilding.
Were the port facilities rebuilt at that time, or are they still working on that?
They didn't have
No port,
facilities,
so they.
in a lot of those
So
countries.
you had to buoy out and.
Because we had to anchor out and take liberty launches back to the ship.
Okay. When you were doing shore patrols, anything special ever happen? Any funny stories? Any?
Oh, there's dozens of funny stories. I did some shore patrol in Gitmo.
Gitmo.
That was an experience. Guantanamo Bay, all the ships in the fleet had to go to Guantanamo Bay for Operation Readiness Inspection to make sure that they were ready for combat or whatever. And the ORI people came on board, and they would direct the shore big guns, shore bombardment and air bombardments and whatever. And then we had some recreation on the beach. So I was over on the beach one day, shore patrol, and a destroyer was over there, and they had a baseball game with us. And the baseball game got a little bit heated up when they were drinking a lot of beer, and it's called Hatui, the beer down there. It has a one-eyed Indian on the label. and they were pretty well boozed up, and they got into a fight. If you can imagine, about 70 sailors fighting out in the middle of the field.
Can't imagine.
And the captain off the destroyer came over to me, and he says, "Go in there and break that up. Break that fight up." I says, 70 guys fighting, and you want me to go in and break up that fight? So he says, "I'll do it." So he goes down, he runs down the hill, and the first sailor he he met up with just cold cocked him, put him right out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went up to Halifax too, out of goodwill, and the Halifax Navy
Nova Scotia.
invited us up to a smoker, and they give you some smokes, and every Halifax sailor, Canadian sailor, had a pitcher of beer under his chair. So they handed you a cup when you went in. That cup never emptied. It was full all the time. So me, not a beer drinker, and I didn't want to insult the Canadian Navy, so we participated, and I'm sure glad it was downhill to the ship. I never would have made it down. And went aboard, and I remember the executive officer pulled my Liberty card and says, "See you in the morning." That was
A lot of fun.
yeah. Shore Patrol in Lisbon was kind of exciting too. In Portugal, they have bullfighting, and in bullfighting, there the toreador at the end was one of two countries that killed the bull. So I went on Shore Patrol there, and there was the bullfighting ring, and I looked in where the bullfighting ring was, came out, turned the corner, and here's a butcher's market where they butchered the dead bulls.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
took the next corner, and I bet you guess what it was. It was a restaurant that advertised good steak. But I traded a lot of Shore Patrol for my time off in the States.
Now on your ship, did you have any big brass? Did you have to deal with any of the top fellas or girls,
Like
admirals or?
Oh yeah, the heavy cruisers had admirals' quarters, and that they call them the flag. So the flag was always on a heavy cruiser,
flag officer.
and that's Admiral Burke, Admiral Waters. And we had some fantastic ones on there, and even 2 or 3 years later, and we were sitting in Boston, they would come by and they'd sit up on the ship and say, "Everybody that was on board when I was your skipper, come up and see me." And Freddie went up and see him, and Admiral Waters passed away here about 2 years ago, and it was up in Gainesville. And,
He lived up there, yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the other. Oh, we had to take a kiddie cruise, and a kiddie cruise to us was the people out of the Navy, and they were Navy ensigns, and it was their first time aboard ship, and we had to go down to Panama, and we went into Cologne, Panama, on a kiddie
Atlantic
cruise.
side, yeah.
And then one of the officers that was with them, his name was Wilson, and we had just had new radar repeaters installed on the ship. RCA came aboard and put in new repeaters, and they were kind of hard to use, and we had to learn how to set them up at night in the dark and so on, and get a good picture on them so we could see the small contacts. Well, Mr. Wilson came by and he says, "What's that?" I said, that's one of our new repeaters. He says, "Show me how to use it." So I showed him all how to use it, all the buttons and so on. And a couple of weeks later, he came by and looked over my shoulder. He says, "That's a lousy picture you got on there. Let me show you how to fix it." That's the way you got. Some of the officers were that way.
Yeah. Hands on.
Yeah.
Was he right when he corrected you?
No. when RCA was installed, they almost lost one of their men. He was working on the power panel, and can you imagine someone taking a pair of pliers and pulling a fuse out of a power panel like that?
Live.
And it's a good thing that he had rubber sole shoes, and the pliers went across the combat center and banged into the wall.
Wow. Did he get a shock out of it?
They what?
Did he get any kind of?
Oh, he sure did.
But the rubber shoes.
But the rubber shoes saved him.
Yeah.
Did he get a flash burn? Did it arc? Did he get a flash burn?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
He was lucky. Yeah.
And then I don't know who I want to tell you the other story about cruising up from Gitmo, because we were never told anything about it being classified, but I was sitting on the computer, and I was plotting the contacts, and my radar man says, I have a huge contact. So I marked it on the plot, and then I says, give me another mark. He says, it's gone. I says, it's gone. He says, yeah. And then contact was completely gone. And this was a huge contact. So my other radar man, the air search radar man, says, I got him, and he's going straight up. Now, I said,
straight
this
up.
is in the 50s, and I believe to this day I saw a UFO, and I believe to this day that the ship contact was the mothership. But you've heard it on TV recently where they say, no mothership, it was an aircraft carrier. No, it wasn't an aircraft carrier. And no one will admit it. But nobody has said, it's classified, you can't talk about it. And so,
that's where you stand on that.
But I believe that they're there, and I believe if they're not there to hurt us, they're there to
survey,
to take care, see how we progress, study us, and I've thought for a long time that probably Earth is an experiment by people out in space. Don't know.
Don't know.
You've had a very, very interesting experience, one that very few people in this world ever get, and that's interesting, tremendously interesting in and of itself, you know?
Yeah. The other time I was on a radar, after I got out of the Navy, I was offered 6 jobs all over the country, Boeing, Hughes, RCA, even I was offered a flight controller's job out of New York, and I chose the RCA job down at the Cape so I could work down there. And I was on a radar down there one time with Scott Carpenter coming over, and I had 5 contacts in line. Funniest things I've ever saw on a radar, 5 of them, and Scott didn't say anything about them because he claims he didn't see them, but they wouldn't let me break tracks or go and try and track them. But that has to be something that you don't see every day.
No,
I'm sure you don't. Now, when you were in the Mediterranean and you interacted with the NATO troops, what was their, like the ships, what was their, how can I say it, the state of readiness maybe, the quality of their fleets, or in other words, an individual, for instance, let's say France or England or whoever?
That's one of the reasons we did it, to show NATO that we were ready and to protect NATO if they needed us to do something. the closest I ever got into combat was Korea. We came into the mid, and we had the flag on board, and we had another cruiser, and they wanted a cruiser over into the Korean area, and they wanted us over in the Korean area, but that's the flag said no. I'm settled on here, so they sent the Macon over through the Suez Canal. So I never did get into any combat like that, but we did just the Navy was seen all over the world, and it was viewed as protection for not only the United States, for everybody. And
Did you have a favorite port of call?
well, my favorite port of call was Ephesus, because the
Paul
thrill
was there,
of
St.
just
Paul.
standing there on that baptism font and on the stage and so on. And there was always something like that in the Navy that would be exciting for young kids like I was to live with for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book after I got out, and I wrote the book for teenagers, because here we got all the teenagers. I was no different. They were no different than me. You don't know what you want to do when you get out of high school, so I highly recommended them to go into any branch of the service. It doesn't matter which one. You could go in the Navy. You could learn a lot of things. You could go in the Marines. You could learn mechanics, medics, all kinds of cooking, whatever interests you. So I highly recommend these kids stay off the drugs and stay out of trouble, because if you get into trouble, they won't let you in any branch of the service.
Yeah.
And then you can make something of yourself and get a good job when you get out. And the big thing is, you got 4 years of college free of charge. You don't have to worry about student loans and everything else. And I felt that my family and a lot of my friends, there was a sense of pride. Just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine on Cape Cod, and he says that the family was proud that they had someone that wrote books and did what you did with your life. You stayed out of trouble, and made not a lot of money, but
You earned a living, you provided. Now, did you raise a family after
Yeah.
the service?
It was funny when my second cruise, I got married in August of 54, and the Navy says go. So September, I was on my ship, going on my honeymoon,
Oh, wow.
leaving
Oh,
my
wow.
wife behind.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever forgiven me for it.
Oh boy. Okay. And is there anything in that you would highlight that you learned, or that you would want to pass on to the next generation? Any advice,
Oh yeah.
words of wisdom, so to speak?
Well, when I worked at the Cape, I used my Navy experience for radar, and I learned a lot from the people down there, especially Peter Hoffenheiden. He was a German. He was Hitler's best engineer for radar. And when he came, they brought him over here. He went to work for me on my radar. And a nice guy. Oh, we had a lot of good times together. No animation whatsoever.
Wow.
And he taught me. We tried to combine radar telemetry into one mount. We couldn't do it.
Okay.
So when I was out on one of my trips to Trimble Navigation, I learned about GPS, and the GPS was only used for survey. They wanted to survey something. They put a GPS on it, and they got a real accurate survey. Well, I came back and I said, why not use GPS with our missile launches and combine it with radar and do that? And I tried to get the Air Force to do it. No. They keep turning me down. For years and years, they turned me down. So I patented it. I patented space-based GPS. And when they finally came to install it, I taught them how to install it on the range. They wanted to put in 5 telemetry sites and 1 GPS satellite into each telemetry site, bring down all that data, which was expensive and hard to do. The bandwidth was tremendous. And then they do the solution at a land station, and then send the results up to range safety. Well, I said, why not do all of that in the missile or in the aircraft or whatever? You could do GPS solutions and come up with what we call a vector. And a vector is X, Y, Z. X being a position, Y is velocity, Z is acceleration. So I said, if each aircraft put in GPS solution and transmitted those vectors, they could use it for air control, collision avoidance, and guess what?
That's what they have today.
No.
You were a pioneer?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Monday night. No, tomorrow night. I got a call coming from the FAA. One of their engineers is going to call me to tell them how to combine radar and telemetry and what I meant about this, and this. He had 6 questions on my patent. And they asked my patent number because it's all explained in there, how it works and so on.
Well, congratulations. Your research is still relevant then.
And most of that came because I was in the Navy.
There you go.
It all fits together.
If you had anything to do over again, is there anything you would change or do differently in your career, in your Navy, in your high school, or afterwards? You know,
I might have signed over for another cruise because the ship went from the 6th Fleet over to the 7th Fleet, and I would have got to see the rest of the world by going over that way.
Had you signed up for another tour, would you have gotten another promotion?
Absolutely. I was in line for what we call lit jets. They're ensigns.
Ensign. So you would have been into a junior.
I would have gone right up to ensign.
Ensign. Okay.
So you would have been you'd got a commission probably.
Yeah, commission officer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that would have been a major career change had you gone in that direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Different life story.
When I first got aboard ship, it wasn't but 6 months before I was in charge of a whole section, 60 men.
Wow.
And we
was chief hard at that time to get, Bob? Was being chief, was that E7, was that hard to get?
it just took time.
Yeah. time in service.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
To study takes time and
Yeah.
work. Oh, I got to tell you about going from Greece to back to Naples.
Mm-hmm.
We were steaming out, and to get there, you have to pass through the Straits of Falmouth, and that's between the boot of Italy and Sardinia.
Oh, okay.
You had to come from here up through here to Naples.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a narrow channel, and it's a high tide rip through there all the time.
Like a high swing? A swing?
It's a high tide rip. Velocity was tremendous. So we were going up with the radar, and on the radar screen we saw two little targets, and we said we called it up to the bridge. So when you do that, the captain goes to the bridge. So we got closer and closer, and the bridge watch was up there with his binoculars, and he says, "That's not two targets. That's a great big tanker with its midship awash." And our captain was going to cut the tow and go through it. What would have happened if we cut a tanker in half?
Wow.
So we had back down full and hard right rudder. We avoided him going through, but
It was
that-
kind of tense.
and it affected the deck officer so much he faded.
Oh,
Seriously?
Oh boy.
is there anything else you would like to add to the interview here, Bob? We're about
No.
finishing up, I believe.
No, I appreciate it because you think about it all the time, and what other people should know, especially the young people, and that's why I wrote this book especially for them, and I hope that a lot of people read it. I hope they put more NROTC in the schools. They have ROTC for reserve officers for military, and then they don't have too many Navy. They should put more Navy in there.
Paul is involved with the Coast Guard Cadets program, and he has a number of young men and women that are what we'll call junior cadets, if you are junior, on the segue, if you will, up into the military, into the Navy and whatnot. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, there's a swearing-in ceremony tonight in Vieira,
Yes.
and they have, I believe, over 300 high school graduating this year from Brevard County in the area, also the area, that are taking the oath of office. It's going to be a very big
Good.
ceremony, and it's exactly in line with your philosophy and what you have written in your book.
Yeah,
So it's a kind of a backward compliment to you.
Yeah.
Backhand, I think
Yeah,
is the way
yeah,
to
yes.
say it. But very well taken, Bill. Bob, and we appreciate you coming in today, and we certainly appreciate you sharing your stories with us.
Yes.
Well, the other thing was, I think that the president heard that I sent an email off to Congress, and I wanted to see some more direct control of the space program here at the Cape.
Yeah.
And he came through because he put in the space branch now, and it's stationed. I sent a Twix up.
Space Force, yeah.
The Space Force. I sent a Twix up recommending the Space Force be
Great.
put here.
Great.
I won.
Good job, Bob. Thank you so much. We're gonna draw this to a close now. You've had a tremendous story. Paul, any final thoughts?
Can I just?
Yeah, by all means.
Not to,
No.
to go backwards.
Please.
And I'm sorry I bored you. She's heard the story so many times.
Not to worry.
Bob, did when you left the Navy, was it hard to readjust to civilian life?
No.
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 Did you go to school or did you go back to work?
I went directly to work. As I say, I was offered 6 jobs all over the
Okay.
place because of my Navy experiences.
Um, the can you tell me just generally speaking, how did the service change you?
I grew up.
Yeah, that's simple.
We all have that pretty much same experience coming out.
Have another one.
And then there's two more. Did the Navy experience change your feelings about war and the military in general?
I'd like to see it all end and the world be at peace, because we could do so much together that we have wasted a lot of people, time,
Resources.
money, fighting over things that are useless.
Yeah. And then my final, thank you, Bob. What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
Veterans need help. There's veterans. Many of them are the ones that saw a battle. They dream about it at night. I know they do, because I've dreamt about some of my experiences, but they were good dreams. They have bad dreams when they see their buddies injured and so on. And depression is the thing that they have the most of. I have depression.
Yep.
I get depressed sometimes when I can't do everything I want to do, but then you got to say, hey, you're 92.
Yeah.
That's a normal human reaction.
That's right.
It goes up and down. It's
That's
not
why